Welcome back, everybody. Well, it's time to build a house. I figure I better get started before my wife runs me off. But I'll stick a picture of the house that we're going to build. I'll stick it in the video here now. Well, I've been out here this afternoon getting all the corners marked and getting everything squared up. And so the one benefit that I've got is I'm building this house on a slab, and I've got a perfectly level lot here and a clean slate to work with. So it makes squaring it up and getting everything laid out a lot easier, rather than if you was having to contend with a slope, trying to measure and keep everything level and square. When you got a 4-foot difference from one end to the other, makes it a little more difficult. But building on a slab and a level lot makes it a lot easier. Well, there's always 100 different ways to skin a cat, but I've just used some simple math to square this house up, and I'll go over that today on how I done it. But one other thing I will tell you that I've found in the past is if you're laying out larger structures, I've found that you're much better off using a steel tape versus these cloth tapes. Cloth tapes just seem to stretch, and your measurements just ain't as accurate as if you've got a steel tape. So I like a steel tape, and then I like one with a little loop on the end. That way when you pin your corners, you can hang it over the corner, and especially when you're by yourself, you ain't got to worry about holding the tape on the end of your pin out there and then it coming loose and you having to walk another 50 foot to go back and hook it back. So steel tape with a hook works pretty good. But hey, I'll kind of show you what I worked on this afternoon. Let's try to get this thing going. Here's a little tip if you want to tie your string line off, but you don't want to tie a knot in the end of your string. Just wrap it around whatever you're going to tie to, and come back and wrap it around your line about 5 times. Usually works pretty good. And then once you get that done, you can come here and pull your slack out. And you can get that about as tight as you want to get it. When you get it where you want it, just pull it back on itself. That'll sit there and hold till the cows come home. And when you get done with it, all you got to do, pull that string and you're loose, and you ain't got a knot in the end of your line. What I'm working on now is establishing the 2 front corners of the garage. I got the house squared off, and then I've got a breezeway that'll connect the house to the garage. It's 14 foot deep. So the house is 56 feet, the garage is 50, so I'm 3 foot in on each end. So I used the old Pythagorean theorem down on the end, squared me up a corner, and I come out and set that front right hand corner. So now all I need is, I'll come off my 14 foot line from the house, but I've got to set the 50 foot stake. So one thing I've found is when you're driving a stake in the ground and dirt, you're trying to hold a measuring tape, then trying to hold on your line, then keep it on a measurement. You can drive it, but sometimes they'll be off 1/8 and you're pecking them back and forth. So one thing I found that's pretty easy is I have a piece of OSB board with a 3/8 inch hole drilled in it. It's the same size as my pins that I'm using. So what I'll do, instead of me having to hold this up here, hold my measuring tape and then drive it, I can line it up with my line, bring it to my measurement that I need. And once I've got that set, all I got to do, stand on my OSB board, and I've got my hole sitting here ready to go, and I don't have to worry about it moving one way or the other. Now if you want to be real anal, you can take a square, set up against your pin, and make sure you're driving it in the ground fairly straight. So when you get done with that, slide your OSB board off and you're ready to go. Now I've got the 2 front corners set on the garage. So one would think you'd just measure out 40 feet here, 40 feet out there, then measure 50 across, and you'd be pretty close. But you can get it close, but it won't be square. So then you would set batter boards up and square off of them. So what I'm going to do is use the Pythagorean theorem. So I've got the two front corners. So what I'm going to do is I will go a squared, b squared, and then it's going to give me this c squared number. So I'll do some math, and basically once I complete that little formula, it'll tell me exactly what measurement I need to intersect with 40 feet out there, and that'll put me right on my corner post. I'll come back and do the same thing from this side, and it'll give me this mark, and your squaring is over. All right, I don't claim to be a math teacher, but here's what I'm after. The building is 50 foot long and it's 40 foot wide. So what I got to do is square this number, add the two together, and then we'll get a total, and then we'll take the square root of that, and that'll give us this diagonal measurement, which what we can do at that point is we can measure from this corner to this corner, and then where it intersects from this corner and 40 feet, that'll give us the location of this corner. We'll come back and do the same thing. We'll measure from here over to this corner, where it intersects with 40 feet here will give us the other corner, and then we'll have a perfectly square 40 by 50 box without having to do a bunch of, scoot it over an inch, give and take. You can square a building up real quick doing this. All right, here's a way to use your phone to do it. If you've got an iPhone, if you flip your phone sideways, it'll give you some more functions. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take 50, and then we're going to come over here and square it. So that gives us 2,500. Then we're going to take 40, and then we're going to come over and square it. Gives us 1,600. All right, then we're going to add that to our first number, and that gives us 4,100. Now we're going to take 4,100 and we're going to ask for the square root of it. So that's going to give us 64.0312423, and etc. So I'm going to show you how to convert that to feet and inches. Now I've had this Dewalt construction app for some time, and you can do all the math that I just got through doing, but it's just a little cleaner, and I figured I'd do it on just a standard calculator. That way if you didn't have a construction app, but you can find these for free. I don't know if you can still get this one, but it works really well. But you can find one for free. But what we're going to do is we'll go to our calculator, and then I'm going to add the 64.03124, and then I'm going to go ahead and call it feet. Then I'll just multiply that times 1, and then that will give me a fraction of 64 feet and 3/8 inch. So what I will do, 64 feet, 3/8 inches. So what I'll do is I'll take a measurement from this corner out, I measure it from this corner out, and where 64 feet, 3/8 inches intersects with 40 feet, that'll give me where that corner is. I'll reverse it, do the same thing to this corner, and we'll have this baby square. All right, here's your little fun project before we go. Next time you get a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and it's a true 4x8, I want you to see how close our math is. So what I've done is took, and I've worked the formula out for you here. So a squared would be 64, b squared would be 16, comes up with 80. We take the square root of that, we get 8.94427. Then we equate that into feet and inches. That gives you 8 foot 11 and 11/32 inches. And so the next time you get a 4x8 piece of plywood, I want you to measure from here to here and see how close my math is. All right, I've got my tapes pulled from the front two corners. I'll get them pulled nice and straight, and then what I'm going to do is I'll come off my 40-foot mark and then my 64 feet 3/8 of an inch. Now my tapes, I've got them hung over my pen, so they measure an 1/8 inch shy, so I have to add an 1/8 when I'm doing this. So I'm going to come to 64 feet and a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to come to 40 feet and an 1/8 of an inch, and where that intersecting mark is, I'm gonna bring my hole right over here and basically line that up on the back corner at that angle that I'm going at. I'll drive my pin right there and we're square. We take that off 40 foot and 1/8 of an inch, or 40 feet, and then we come back here 64 and a half, which would be 64 inches, 64 feet and 3/8 of an inch. So we've got this corner set, so I'll pull over to the other corner and we'll get it finished up. That'll work. Well, I got all my corners marked and everything squared up. I will have to come back and add batter boards here on the garage. That way we can set our elevation and pull our strings, because I'm going to pour this in a monolithic pour. So I will come in here and dig footers, and it'll be one continuous pour when I pour it. So I'll set the batter boards up, that way when we dig our footers and, you know, dig these pins out, we'll be able to go back and reference off of it. But anyway, we got her laid out and we ought to be ready to go. But I am standing in what will be the garage. We will have a enclosed breezeway here, as I've indicated on the ground. I went ahead and just painted out the corners, that way the wife and family could kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. But come through the breezeway and then this will come into the house. But we're off to the races. Now for the fun part. And the fun part being getting this slab laid out and all this plumbing laid out in the slab. That's the one thing that I've dreaded the most about building this house, is getting this slab prepped, getting all my plumbing conduit in the right places and getting it ready to go. Once we get the slab poured, it'll be a little stress off of me. But you know, I've scoured the internet on trying to find somebody that's got the magic potion for laying this plumbing out in a slab. And it seems like everybody just pulls lines off of walls and, you know, measure from left and right, up and back, and to try to get them in the right spot. But I'm going to go in here now that I've got everything squared up and I get my batter boards up. I'm going to go ahead and go in here and I'm going to pin the center of all my plumbing pipes in here. And then I'm going to lay out all my trenches, and then I'm going to go ahead and dig and put all my drain lines in before I dig any footers or put any forms up. And so I don't want to have to do it twice. So I've got a little method I think that'll work, that I'll share in an upcoming video on how we're going to locate these things. And if you're drawing a set of plans, you might want to consider doing from the get-go. It might make life easier on you. But that's to come. We got a long way to go, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So if you want to follow along the journey, we'll be glad to take you. And until the next time, we'll see you later.